153, who is 153. Oh, bugger, I don't like this. Alejandro Jodorowsky. Hodorovsky, The Holy Mountain.
He was supposed to do Dune.
He was, yeah.
Yeah.
It's surrealism, which is just kind of... it's over my head.
I mean, I'll listen to you talk about him, but I don't know if I'll watch the movies.
I've seen El Topo, and that was like a hugely famous midnight movie. When I watched it, I thought, really? Because if I watched this at midnight, I'm not like somebody who falls asleep early, but that'd knock me to sleep. Hello, my name is Rob Simpson and welcome to Directors Uncut. If this is your first episode, we put filmmakers from all corners of the globe onto a huge list that covers everything from body horror sweethearts to leading lights of silent cinema. Then we turn it into a lottery of directors, and by using a random number generator, we pick a name out of the hat. Whatever name comes out, myself and some guest hosts discuss them and their work through 2 films. Today, I've been joined by Jonathan, who is a film writer and researcher who's worked a lot with Second Run. Hello.
Nice to be here.
And returning from the Devil Times 5 podcast is Cliff. Hello there.
Good to be back. You got the name of the podcast right.
I did. It took long enough. In the end. Running joke there, as I kept on getting it wrong. I kept on calling it Devil Times 5 times.
No, that is what it's called.
Yeah, and then you got it. Getting it wrong, I got it wrong. This week's episode is one I was very, very frightened about. It is Alejandro Jodorowsky.
Yes.
Yeah.
Now that's interesting because, when I rewatched The Holy Mountain yesterday, I thought, what I wrote on Letterboxd is do not be scared of this film. Do not think it's a difficult film. It's very accessible. But we'll get onto that later, I guess.
Well, it's not so much the accessibility or difficult. Well, we'll jump into this first. We're playing around with the formula this week, so we'll open just setting up the director, and then we'll come back to him and the 2 movies we're talking about later, which are Santa Sangre and Holy Mountain. So I guess the immediate question, since we sort of sashayed around it a little bit, is what was your first, I don't know how you'd say this because he's just been around for a very long time, but what was your first exposure? What was your first movie that you saw of Hodorovsky?
Well, I think the first exposure was El Topo when it was on BBC Two, and I think
same.
I think it would have been maybe kind of late 90s, maybe like 97, something like that. And but I must admit, I didn't actually watch the whole thing at the time. I think it kind of overwhelmed me, and I think I probably used to lean a little bit too much on the Time Out Film Guide reviews, which I think didn't give it a very good review. And I think I kind of just was watching it casually, maybe for about an hour, and kind of dismissed it really. And I think only came back to it later through a friend who held him in very high regard. And I think he mentioned him in relation to Dennis Hopper and the last movie. So I think that piqued my interest. Yeah. And then after that, I think I kind of I must have remembered the name. And then I think I came across Holy Mountain when they released it on video in, I guess it would have been again, maybe 99 or 2000. And that was, I think it was a copy from the Japanese Laserdisc, because it had the kind of the sort of blurring of the kind of genitals and things like that. So maybe not the ideal way to see it, but that was really the first film of his that I really watched straight through. And I think I probably watched about half an hour of it the first time at a time, because again, it kind of overwhelmed me. But then I sat down with it a bit later and watched it through. And I loved it really. I mean, I couldn't say that I really understood anything very much, but it was really just a great experience.
I've just looked it up. It was broadcast early morning Saturday 22nd of March 97, so I'd have been 21, which is actually later than I thought. It went out at 1:30 in the morning. It's part of BBC Two's Forbidden season. So even though it was presumably the TV premiere of it, they put it out really late just because it's so out there for TV at the time. And it had a 10-minute introduction by Christopher Frayling, which I vaguely remember. I need to revisit that film. I've been meaning to for ages, but I'm waiting to buy the 4K box set when that is that already out? I think it might be. I just haven't got around to it. Anyway.
It's the same one, isn't it? You said you were both exposed to the same screen on TV.
Yeah.
I didn't realise it was that late. I guess that's my excuse. That it. Yeah, I guess that I held out then till about 2:30 a.m., which is not bad, I guess.
No. I almost certainly taped it and watched it the next day. But
I don't know where I first heard of him. He's just one of those directors who's always been sort of synonymous with sort of outsider and horror cinema, even though he's not really a horror director. His imagery certainly works within the horror genre a lot of times, but no, it's just one of those names that I couldn't pinpoint. This is the time when I first heard about him. But the first movie I saw, I probably did it completely wrong because it was around, just check the years here, 2016, Endless Poetry.
Oh, yeah. So that's the second part of his 5-part autobiography, which I doubt, he's in his 90s now, I doubt he'll finish it, unfortunately. I've seen the first part, it's really good. Yeah. And I haven't got around to Endless Poetry yet.
It's not the best place to start.
Well, no, I mean, the first part, The Dance of Reality, is him trying to do what he used to do, but on a very reduced budget. Still full of creativity, but yeah, maybe it would just look cheap and weird if it's your first exposure to him. Whereas if you know what he's trying to do, you're like, good to see he's still making the effort even without the budget.
It's just been thrown into the deep end, really, and you're not really knowing how to deal with it. That was my experience of it. It's because when you've got no background to it, it just feels like this is the sort of the rolled out criticism of any surrealism, really. It's and this happens, and then this happens, and then this happens, and then this happens.
Yeah, because I think if you've watched like the other films and then you come to that, and then especially like knowing that it's autobiographical, it actually like helps kind of explain some of the elements in the earlier films, like the obsession with, you know, like kind of terrible parents and things like that, mother and father figures, like, you know, in Santa Sangre. It kind of, I guess, if you've seen those earlier films, it does put a few things in context, I think. But yeah, if you come to it like without any of that, it must be a bit mystifying, I think. And yeah,
surrealism without context is meaningless at the end of the day.
It would be nice if he did make another film, because I think I remember hearing that there was, he was interested in making like a third film in like a series. And I think that probably would deal with the point when he leaves Chile and goes to Paris. And that I would like to see that, because I guess that would deal with his days like working with Marcel Marceau and then setting up that panic movement with Arabelle and Roland Topor. So yeah, I hope that maybe one of his sons could make it, I guess. Or
if he's written them, then maybe they can still be made. But
assuming he has the talent of his father. I remember when Kinji Fukasaku died midway through Battle Royale 2. He has a beautiful back catalogue of movies, and his son doesn't have the same ability, I don't think. So it didn't really do great favours for his legacy, unfortunately.
That is a tedious film, Battle Royale 2.
Get away from me.
No.
Leave me alone.
No. I'm not here to hurt you. Please, tell me what I have to do to stop this. How do I make them go away?
Look, you killed that innocent girl, Marin. There's nothing I can do.
No, except I didn't kill her.
Leave me alone.
I didn't kill her father, and now people are telling me all these things I don't want to hear. I mean, there must be a prayer you can say. I'll try anything.
You did this to yourself.
What?
You turned away from God, and you cast yourself into the darkness.
But I didn't do anything wrong.
Every devil used to be an angel, and now you've fallen from grace forever. When Satan was banished from heaven, he was cursed to crawl the earth like a snake. There's no hope for you.
What? So that's it? There's nothing you can do for me?
I've got a rope in that shed over there. I could take you out to that tree where Marin died, and I could string you up.
So we'll take a little break from Alejandro Jodorowsky and pick him up in a little bit, just playing around with the formula here. So we're going to jump right into what other things we've been watching besides things with Alejandro Jodorowsky. Who wants to go first?
You.
Me?
Yeah.
All right, I'll go first.
Yeah, I'm scared about this. Yeah, I've not seen very much actually recently, so I feel exposed.
Oh, that's okay. I mean, the most recent episode, the episodes that are going out now, the weekly. So there's a lot that's coming over from the Patreon archive, and this one with brand new episode. The last one that went out on the Patreon archive was Alejandra Aja, I should say. Getting me Alex and my names mixed up. So I thought I'd watch something from his filmography that I hadn't bothered with before. So I picked Horns, because it seems like a bit of an outlier. And it's an interesting outlier, honestly, because he's a bit of, I don't know whether you want to call him a horror journeyman who just does exploitation movies in a modern era. But if the shoe fits, I guess he should wear it. But I think he's got something more to offer, really, because there's an interesting director at work in Horns. Pulls off some incredibly interesting visual tricks, playing with religious symbology. Kind of weird that it should come up in this episode. However, like any Aja movie, really, the gore's great, the symbolism's great, the visuals are great, but I honestly don't think he's ever very good at finishing.
I absolutely love Haute Ascension and always have. But I haven't found anything from him as good as that. I don't like Hills of Eyes. I don't like Crawl that much. I don't like Mirrors. Mirrors is dreadful. So when I saw Horns for £1 in sex, which is the correct pronunciation of CX, yes. That's what they say when they answer the phone. I didn't even buy it for £1 on Blu-ray. I just thought, I mean, it's not like I don't have £1 spare. It's just, I don't know. I just like, nah, just can't be asked.
He's got. I don't think he's made his best film yet. I'll say that much. Interesting filmmaker. His skill as a filmmaker is great.
Sorry,
his skill as a storyteller, not so much.
Sorry, I've just remembered he made Piranha 3D as well. That's good. I like that.
I'm not saying that one, but he's a better filmmaker than he is a storyteller. Because the last bit of that, the last 10 minutes, it kind of falls in its own weight, really. And it's interesting, Horns. Very interesting. So I went first. Who's jumping next?
All right. I've got my three recently watched kind of thematically similar in some ways. One is a new release at the cinema, True Things, directed by Harry Woodliff and starring Ruth Wilson as a woman in, Thanet, who works in a benefits office. She's single, bit kind of aimless in life. One of her clients makes a pass at her. She goes for it. They start a highly charged relationship, and he keeps disappearing and ghosting her. And I mean, it's a sad story, really, that she's so messed around by this bloke. But Ruth Wilson is absolutely incredible in it. Just can't take my eyes off her. She's got such an interesting face. Yeah, she's great. So yeah, it's a good film. It's a good film.
Okay, Jonathan, do you have anything? It doesn't have to be a movie. It can be literally anything that you've.
Well, I think the two things that come to mind are I went on a kind of a bit of a sort of Soviet / Russian / Ukrainian film kick, which actually was because I was working on one of Miklos Yancho's films. I was doing a commentary for The Red and the White, which is set in Ukraine in the Civil War period, the Russian Civil War period. And this was, I was working on this in January, so it was kind of a weird kind of coincidence, I guess, with current events.
Oh, yes.
And then I kind of just got into watching a lot of sort of Soviet 60s films, which is kind of not a very well explored area for me, really. And I came across a film that I really loved called No Path Through Fire, which I think was made in, about 1965 or 66 by Gleb Panfilov. And it really, it sounds strange to describe. This is a film set in the height of the Russian Civil War, but it's strange to describe it as charming, but it was a really charming, heartwarming film. And I really like the actress who plays the lead character, called Ina Churikova. She's got a very kind of magnetic and just a very disarming quality about her. And I thought this was a really lovely film. And I also I've watched a couple of Sergei Lozhnitsa's films from the 2000s, and there's one that he did, I think it's about 2016 or 2015, called State Funeral, and it's basically just like edited. It's footage that he took from it was actually like the footage of Stalin's funeral, and so it's like a kind of a found footage film that he just where he just took the footage and then he just edited it himself, and it's a really disturbing experience, and it's very repetitive and very kind of minimalistic, because it's just these endless parades of people, at Stalin's funeral, and it's really kind of creepy after a while, because you're looking at it and it's obviously this was footage that was intended as like an official record of the funeral, and you're kind of like watching it, just trying to like catch people out, like looking at people's faces, trying to catch the reactions, and everybody's like really like looking sad, and it's like this terrible thing that's happened, and you're trying to see like, is there something else in the expressions or something that's like, a bit off the record. And it's I think it's about 2.5 hours as well. It's just very kind of grueling and repetitive, but weirdly kind of hypnotic, really, and fascinating. So that was I can't say exactly like light viewing, but was very interesting, I thought.
It's always a fine line with movies like that that deal with repetition, because it can, once you get sort of captured in its rhythm, it can be magnetic, but at the same time, if it captures you in the wrong day, it can be completely repellent. It's such a weird little thing to strive for in any movie, really.
I wish I had more hours in my life to, really investigate those kind of areas of cinema, because, I do love weird shit and, out there arty shit, but 2.5 hours of watching a documentary about Stalin's funeral, just like I could read an article in Sight and Sound about it, perhaps.
It's not it's not the lightest experience. I mean, it's a good companion, I guess, with The Death of Stalin with the Armando Iannucci. I mean, that would make a nice kind of double bit. If you have kind of like 4.5 hours to spare, it's a nice pairing, I think.
How about just watching at the same time, side by side? Because presumably this state funeral's not got much dialogue.
I don't think it has any apart from just speeches, which you don't really want to listen to. So,
right, okay.
Anything else from either of you?
There's a new release on Mubi called... I mean, how can you resist watching a film called Zero Fucks Given? It stars Adele Exarchopoulos from Blue is the Warmest Colour, and she's really brilliant in it. She plays a cabin crew, air hostess, air stewardess, whatever you call them. And she's, it's her career. She's quite good at it. She gets promoted, which she's basically forced into being promoted. And then she gets suspended, and the rest of the film is really boring. I really liked it when I wish it was Greek. I wish it was directed by one of those Greek weird wave guys. It would have been ideal for that. But maybe it just leans a bit too close into sort of French ennui to really, get you excited. So, once she's suspended from her job, I think the film just sort of loses its way a bit. The other one that I watched, Spencer, which if I'd seen it last year would have absolutely been in my top 10 of 2021 when we recorded that special. It's amazing. I really did not expect a film about Princess Diana having to spend 3 days over Christmas 1991 with the royal family to, tilt into full-on psychological thriller. It's brilliant. And Johnny Greenwood's score, what he does with kind of freeform jazz as she loses her mind, is remarkable. And Kristen Stewart is incredible.
The name's completely escaped me. Is that the one by the Chilean director? He did not.
Pablo Larraín, yeah.
Yeah.
Who did what, sorry?
No.
Did he do that?
He
did Emma and Jackie. And did he do No? Okay.
Yeah.
I haven't seen that yet, but yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, you're right. He did do that.
The other one that I mentioned it quickly because it's for an upcoming podcast, is what the year is it here? A 1996 movie, the soul movie by Hype Williams called Belly.
Oh, yeah.
This was for a podcast that a regular contributor on the show does, Graham Popscreen, talking about pop stars movies and what have you. And that is a movie made by rappers, Nas and... I'm exposing myself here with 1990s rap. Nas and DMX.
Mm-hmm.
And stylistically, it's shot very much like a music video about two black gangsters in inner city America. The climb and the fall, and they both do it in very, very different ways. There's interesting things in it, like the way it's shot like a music video, for one. There's a little piece by I think he was a bishop at the time, talking about the waste of black life in modern America, which is very touching. But at the same time, it's very much maybe a work in progress, because it supposes that black gangsters all are basically the exact same person, that all use the N-word and F-word every other word, and there's no real differentiation from one character to the next, so it can be quite incredibly disorientating when you don't know who anybody is, because none of the characters are distinct enough to really stand out. So it's bewildering, really, but stylistically, it's an incredible achievement from a director who probably could have had a decent career if this was a little bit more successful.
And that was Hype Williams.
Yeah.
He's had a pretty decent career. I don't think he's wanting.
Incredible career of music videos.
Yeah.
Who's who, really. But yeah, his film career could have been something more, I think.
Sure. Yeah, I've not seen that. This is kind of, relevant to my interests, but I don't know why I've never watched it. I think maybe I've just sort of lumped it in with the kind of Boys in the Hood, New Jack City kind of thing.
Yeah.
And
very different.
Right, I'll give it a go.
I'm not sure if it's good, but it's very different than them, yeah.
You know you cannot escape death, but immortality can be obtained. We must unite our forces to assault the Holy Mountain and rob its wise men of their secret of immortality.
So we shall jump into Alejandro Jodorowsky with Santa Sangre and the Holy Mountain. Seeing as though you two are guests on the show, I'll allow you to pick which one we go for first.
It's got to be Holy Mountain, isn't it?
I think so. Holy Mountain.
Okay. The one I'm hoping you were going to do first. Okay, let's do this. See, this is why I was worried about Hodorovsky coming up, because usually at this point I'd say, so somebody please explain what this movie is about. When you get a movie like this, I don't think it's quite as black and white.
I can do a plot summary.
So, okay.
So a thief wakes up in wilderness and is taken into a town where he meets up a huge tower, an alchemist who introduces him to it's 7 other people, isn't it, who each represent one of the planets and also a kind of mystical figure. And together the 9 of them trek towards what he calls the Holy Mountain to find enlightenment and immortality. And that's basically the storyline. But the reason it's called the Holy Mountain is because it makes you go, holy shit, every 30 seconds. It's so packed full of stuff. When I was, when I was planning when to watch this week, I thought, that's about 2.5 hours, that film, isn't it? It's not. It's just over an hour 50, but it packs so much in that you think it must be longer. It's so full of remarkable imagery, and I mean, where do you begin? First 10 minutes, you got that guy, the little guy with no arms. You got the two dots. Imagine being the makeup artist on this film. You could do it at work. Yeah. I had to paint 24 young boys' genitals green. Okay, the bits in town with all the Jesus figures. Do you think they'd ever have a Jesus Christ on the next Netflix show? Is It Cake? Because there is a Jesus that turns out to be a cake. There's the incredible toad and chameleon circus thing, recreating the invasion of Mexico. Is it?
Yeah.
Which blows me away. Then there's that whole business with the kind of restaging of war crimes for the enjoyment of tourists. And all of this is in the first 10 minutes. It's so busy, this film, and it's a thing. It's beautifully shot. I love it, and it's so colourful.
It just kind of keeps upping the ante, doesn't it? Because you get that whole sequence, like in Mexico, like in the streets, and then you go up the tower, and then that takes you to like another dimension already, doesn't it? Because you have those amazing sets, and then by the time you get into the sequences of the 7 different planets, I mean, you're just in this kind of completely psychedelic sensibility that I mean, and again, like you say, it kind of like you feel that it's like the scene with just the planets that seems longer than it really is, because I think by the point that's finished, I think you're only about like an hour and 10 minutes into it, and yet it seems like he's created so many kind of worlds just within that hour.
I mean, the thing that amazed me is allegedly the budget for this was £750,000, and that just seems unbelievable.
Yeah.
If you don't like this, which I'm not sure yet, the one thing that you never be able to criticise about it is some of the location work and some of the sets probably up there with the greatest that have ever been captured in cinema.
Yeah, I mean, you're talking about the very tall toilet that would be sitting on, obviously.
That's just the tip of the iceberg, really.
Why has she got like a severed dog's head on her mantelpiece? I don't know. It looks great.
It's like the bits with the architect. I've never seen anything like that. I mean, it's just spectacular, really.
And the artworks, like the sort of human body, kind of like sculptures and things like that. And
what other film has a chauffeur calling a machine frigid because he can't make it have an electric orgasm?
Oh yeah,
it's so much.
It's apparently about ascending a mountain based on a book.
Yeah, Mount Analog.
But in reality, it's just so many things and more, really. Apparently, the process for making this was quite a telling one, really. How Hodorovsky never slept for a week before it, and he was getting help from a Japanese Zen master to control that.
I think the actors were sort of like they were kept like in a house, weren't they? I think, and apparently like a lot of them were on acid a lot of the time, and they were sort of subjected to like a very rigorous kind of training program, and kind of similar to what you actually see, I guess, like in the second part of the film. And I'm not always sure how far to kind of go with believing some of the kind of stories around it. I don't know how much of that is like sort of conscious kind of like myth making. Yeah.
There is a few directors who have that sort of legacy around them. I think it was, I don't remember which Werner Herzog movie it was when he hypnotized his entire cast.
Heart of Glass. Yeah, that's a kind of Hodorovskyan type of story, isn't it? I think that idea of subjecting people to endurance tests.
It wouldn't surprise me if there was a lot of acid involved, but presumably not all the time, otherwise no one would have fucking got anything done.
Apparently that was the birth and death and rebirth sequence that was done under heavy LSD.
Maybe they invented microdosing for the rest of it.
And there's
this.
There's a story about the ritual with, Axon, where he's cutting off the testicles of the boy. And there's a story that the actor playing Axon was on acid. And when Hodorovsky shouted cut, that he thought he meant to actually cut the testicles for real and started doing it. But that's the story. I don't know if it's true. I'd like to think it is, but
given the length of it, yeah. I'd expect it to be true because the product speaks for itself, really, doesn't it?
And then, you've got that really gory massacre scene, except it's not gory because it shows you how all the effects would be made, with
that's brilliant.
Obviously fake bodies and that little pipe thing that straps someone's head to make all blood come out, and which actually turns up again in Santa Sangra. The thing where people are being shot and birds come out of their bullet holes. It's incredible. But people their guts spilling out, except it's a load of marbles or something. It's like a sort of parody of splatter. And, the satire in the film is really broad brush, but I think that makes it means that it's still relevant even now, all these years later. The stuff about the architect who's created this town where people can just go and work and then have absolutely no home life worth speaking of. But apparently they're free. They're free of having to have a family or having to have a social life or anything like that, or have to worry about money, because all they do is work and then they go home and sleep in a little coffin. And
it's haunting, that bit, yeah.
Yeah. Remind me of Monty Python. The architect sketch in Monty Python. Flying Circus. Yes. Remind me of that bit.
Like the abattoir builder, isn't it, I think?
Yeah.
The meaning of life vibe about that bit entirely.
They are kind of like sketches, I guess, as well, aren't they? Those sequences, I think. They are sort of extended comedy sketches in a good way, I think.
Absolutely, yeah.
It's probably the best way to process a lot of it, really, because if you take it seriously, it's...
The arms dealer, the one who manufactures weapons for all different religions. Seriously, if this film does not make you go fuck now every 30 seconds, then you're not paying attention.
Yeah. But just rewind though for the two of you. I mean, this was my first time. What was your reaction to seeing it the first time? Because it is full on as any sort of experience.
I mean, it's beautiful. I loved it from the very first time I saw it. I've watched it 4 times over the last 9 years, and it just never gets old.
Me too. Yeah, I was also really glad that I got the chance to see it at the cinema as well. I saw it at the Corner House in Manchester when that was still there, and it's just great to see it on the big screen. The only kind of thing that detracted was just sort of typical kind of I'm from Manchester, so I can say this, typical Manchester audience, a lot of people just laughing at a lot of it, which I kind of, sometimes I'm okay with, but I just thought it was I don't know, there's patronizing laughter, or there's you're laughing with something. And I felt there was a little bit of that kind of sort of smug laughter that spoilt it a little bit, but it was still great seeing it at the cinema.
Yeah,
it is very funny, though.
Yeah, that's true.
It is a problem with surrealism. You don't know whether you're supposed to laugh or whether you're supposed to take it seriously. And if you laugh, maybe you're laughing at the wrong time.
That's what I felt, yeah.
I don't think...
Yeah.
It's not really a problem here because it's so silly.
I mean, what's your favourite funny moment in it? I mean, there's so many to choose from. I think I know what mine is, just because it comes out of nowhere.
Personally, it's the machine that he has to pleasure. It's just, where does that come from?
Yeah,
it's bizarre.
I really like the bit up the mountain where there's the naked guy with big tits, and there's it looks like he's going to go into a sex scene, and then all of a sudden, instead of big tits, he's got 2 severed tiger cubs' heads that are squirting. He's got in blood or milk. I can't even remember now. It's just, what? It's so funny.
I think for me, the best, I think that the funniest, actually it's a bit of dialogue, funnily enough, not an image, but it's the reference to hypersex native vampires when they're talking about killing the Peruvians. I think just that line is so funny.
So did you enjoy it, Rob? Because you're very confused.
It's just sensory overload, really, isn't it?
Well, that's what I love about it. I don't care that I don't fully understand the meaning. It's just, what other film gives you all this imagery, all those colours? I mean, it's beautiful to look at.
I was so jealous of seeing it at a cinema, by the way. That would have been something really special.
I really find it exciting when films have lots of animals in it. And I don't know why that is, but I guess it's just like the kind of unpredictability. And there's so many animals in this, dead and alive. I think Hodorovsky firstly prefers animals when they're dead. And
just to return to that bit about favourite bit with the animal, it's the animal doing the I can't remember the name of the pose, but when you cross your legs over and have your hands together, the name of the pose is completely the lotus position. Well, they've got a monkey doing a lotus position, a chimpanzee doing a lotus position. How's he done that? It's so bizarre.
And there's a tiger, isn't there, as well? Like during the sort of the mountain climb, where I assume because at that point he has the alchemist has the black mask, so I assume that was just a way to kind of hide the fact that that's like a tiger trainer. But you're never sure. Maybe Hodorovsky, you could imagine that he could have actually trained a tiger himself, but probably that was actually like a professional trainer doing that. But still, you see it there with the other actors there, and that's quite a feat, because I think they did the mountain climb for real as well. According to him, it was like they actually did go up the mountain, and it wasn't fake really. And then they had sort of like terrible weather, I think, and things. And I think they changed the ending as well, didn't they? Because I think they were meant to have a different ending that would have been more elaborate with the people levitating. And so I think that was kind of like a bit of an improvised ending.
Yeah, because the ending, it does have a camera's pull back now.
Yeah. It's a Monty Python ending.
This is a film.
Speaking of Monty Python, I mean, it's funny because I think Monty Python, the Holy Grail, I think is around the same time, isn't it? And that has basically the same ending. Because if you think of it, it's like it's a quest narrative again, isn't it? That seems to be heading towards something, and then it ends with, it's just a film, and there's a weird parallel with that.
It's an experience, all right, and I don't think you can say that about many films, really, especially not to this level.
Well, there you go. Alejandro Jodorowsky's Monty Python. That's what. Don't be scared to watch it. It's weird, but it's not difficult.
I think what coloured that sort of fear of it really was when I watched Ender's Poetry. It was all this surrealism, but it was clearly something that had some sort of greater context and some greater significance that it was pointing towards. And not having that, I mean, I watch a lot of Czech movies and they're very surreal, but once you key into the context, they all make sense. But Ender's Poetry, I didn't have that context, so I was completely out of my depth.
I mean, I think that says a lot about him too, doesn't it? Because he is kind of hard to pinpoint in terms of even like just country, like which country he belongs to. Because I mean, I think he said himself that, I mean, he's Chilean of like Russian Jewish descent, and then he went to live in France. He made the films in Mexico, like with American money, and in terms of just trying to place it in a particular kind of cultural tradition, it's really just him, I guess. I mean, I guess surrealism's there, but then there's all the sort of mystical elements as well. And that in itself, there's all these different religions there. There's like, Christianity, Buddhism, there's like these kind of weird kind of new age things in there as well. And it's like, there's just so many kind of reference points. I can understand that it can be like really overwhelming if you try and kind of analyze it sort of like bit by bit, really. And he's really like a universe unto himself, I think.
Yeah, entirely. Yeah. Any final thoughts before we pick the next director?
Well, I always like the trivia that George Harrison was lined up to play the thief, except the reason he pulled out was because he didn't want to show his anus on camera.
Makes sense. It's a very valuable earnest at that point in time. Jonathan, any final?
I think to me, I think what's so unique about it is, like you mentioned, like with the budget, and I guess, that was a small budget for like a kind of a standard production, but I guess for the type of movie he's making, I guess it was, I guess more money than he would have had for like had John Lennon not seen El Topo and then set up this deal. And so to me, it's like an epic version of like an underground movie. So that's how I think of it, that it's really a kind of like a unique, moment, I guess, in film history where that could have happened, that somebody like that could have been given that amount of money to do this thing. And I don't think it will ever happen again that you'll see a film that's that mad, with that kind of scale to it, really.
Oh, no.
It's interesting you said George Harrison's anus was very valuable because, I mean, I got my mind set on you, had to come from somewhere, didn't it?
Hello, taking a little step away from the show to tell you what's coming up in the next few episodes. The next two from the Patreon archive. The first one in a very, very different animation double bill of episodes is René Laloux, who did incredibly odd experimental animation from the 1970s, sci-fi animation from the 70s, called Fantastic Planet. That's one of the movies we do in that episode, and we follow that up by dipping our toe in anime for the first time, and with Makoto Shinkai, who's probably most famous for Your Name, but since we recorded that episode, or around the time we recorded that episode, he's since done Weathering with You. So there's two very, very different episodes. So if you have any takes on either of those directors, although I assume that it's more than likely going to be Makoto Shinkai, he is far more popular than René Laloux. But if you have any comments, please do get in touch with me by emailing me at directorsuncutpod@gmail.com. That's directorsuncutpod@gmail.com, or finding me on social media at Twitter @_RJ Simpson, or on Instagram at directorsuncutpod. But yeah, if you like the show, please do give it a subscribe, give it a rating if you're on Spotify, listening on Spotify, or a review if you listen on Apple Podcasts or iTunes, as it used to go by. I've got an idea I'd like to fly by you listeners just while I have you. The format of the show includes us picking a director at random and then talking about two of their movies. However, that effectively excludes a lot of directors who only ever did one movie, whether that's all they wanted to do or whether that's all the industry allowed them to do, because the industry sucks sometimes like that. I was just thinking, where would those episodes go? Because I won't be able to do a traditional episode talking about those one movie names. Should they go on Patreon? Should there be a mini-series between series? I like your feedback on this, so please do let me know on social media or email, please. I'd love to hear your take. So, yeah, I hope you're enjoying the show. If you are, please do share it with your friends on social media, because that's how small podcasts that are just taking their steps out into the wild really do stand out from the crowd. And I like to think my podcast stands out with the crowd. A lottery of directors, please. It's a cool idea, let's be honest. So let's take a step back into the podcast where we talk about some more movies from Alejandro Jodorowsky.
¿Cuál es el sentido de la vida?
El cerebro hace preguntas, el corazón da las respuestas. La vida no tiene sentido. ¡Vive! ¡Vive!
Poesía. Alumbrarás mi camino como una mariposa que arde.
Okay, so that leads us to the second movie of the night, Alejandro Jodorowsky's Santa Sangre. His, what year was it again? Sorry, his 89 movie, so it's late in his career, this one. Who wants to take a crack at this one? Because this one, as far as synopsis goes, is a little easier to pin down.
I'll maybe try this. But so I'll give a little kind of summary. And so, yeah, it starts with a young man in a mental institution called Phoenix, who's obviously traumatized and he seems to believe that he is an eagle, I think. And then we kind of go back into his family history. His father is an American knife thrower in a circus. He owns this circus called Cirque del Gringo, I think. And then his mother is also a circus performer, but also kind of like a religious fanatic who has this strange religious cult based on this, I guess, this terrible story of this armless girl. And the father is cheating on the mother with a tattooed lady in the circus. And in vengeance for that, the mother castrates him or pours acid on his crotch, and then the mother has her arm sliced off by the father, and so obviously creates terrible traumatic memory for the child who grows up and later re-encounters the mother, or seems to do, on the street, escapes from the institution, and they form a weird double act together where he acts as the arms of the mother in a kind of a cabaret act that they do. And that's really just the I guess the sort of the premise for a lot of other kind of crazy and violent and strange incidents.
Yeah, it's spot on. Cliff, what did you think of this one?
I mean, watching it straight after the Holy Mountain, it's disappointing. It's always going to be disappointing because it's too normal. It's just a story.
I think that's doing it a disservice.
Yeah, I think there's like
it's like, but it almost like sets you up to expect the Holy Mountain again, because it starts with a bloke who looks a bit Jesus-y, and then like he's got a little friend who's a little guy, and you think, oh, here we go again. But then it's also I thought, now I was going to say, it looks, the lighting and everything, the colours are more naturalistic, and that's disappointing as well. Turns out the Blu-ray that was put out in 2011, I think they got the colours wrong, because looking at screenshots from the new 4K restoration, it looks like, all bright and colourful like the Holy Mountain does. So I think I need to upgrade my copy. But I mean, it is fine. It's just, I do like it. It's got its moments, but I think it's too long.
Yeah,
I think it's too long for the story it tells.
It lags a bit, doesn't it?
Unfocused. Yeah, it's unfocused. When it finally, it's in the second hour, it starts becoming this kind of horror movie. But it doesn't feel like a Hodorovsky horror movie. That's hard to say. It feels like a Pedro Almodovar horror movie.
Yeah.
Yeah.
There's nothing wrong with that. It's just that's not what the first hour seems to be leading up to.
It's funny you say that thing about the colours, because when I was watching it, it made me think of John Waters, funnily enough. In the sense of, it feels like authentic surrealism, like this world already exists because it's so muted, and these characters could be found.
Right. So do you know which print of it you watched? Because I don't think it is meant to be. I don't think it is meant to be muted.
It's not muted, but when you compare it to Holy Mountain, it's muted. It's just not as sharp.
No, and I think looking at the screenshots of the new releases, I think they got it wrong.
Yeah,
because that's a weird context it adds to it. Yeah,
because I've got the Blu-ray, like the latest one. I mean, I think it looked pretty good. I think the color it's kind of deeper, isn't it? I think like Holy Mountain is much more kind of like bright, kind of like lighter colors, and I think this is kind of deeper colors, because I guess it's a lot of like deep red, so to speak. And I mean, I do like the visuals, but I agree. I feel it lags a bit, and I feel that you're kind of, sometimes you feel like you just want it to kind of move a bit faster, and it's kind of telling different stories too, isn't it? I think, and it feels a bit like he's trying to, create a kind of linear narrative, and yet his heart is still with like the set pieces, isn't it? Because I think some of the most impressive things are like the sequence of like the elephant's funeral, or like the scene at the end with the bodies that come from the graves. And in a way, those are not really that connected to the narrative. And you feel that really, if he had just been let loose again to do a sort of Holy Mountain style film, maybe it would have been a bit more satisfying, or at least that's more where my heart is. I mean, I think some people do feel this is like his best film because it's his most disciplined, but I mean, it's like whether you really want discipline from Hodorovsky. I would rather just have a kind of freak out style movie like Holy Mountain.
I don't think it is disciplined, because I think it's sort of, because like you say, it's that mess of the two styles. I wish, I personally wish he'd done it as a 90-minute horror movie and left out all the cool surreal stuff, which just isn't as good as it is in the Holy Mountain. So if it played it more straight, it's an interesting horror film, interesting idea, and it's got that spoiler, but it's got that same twist ending as Haute Tension, isn't it? It's high tension, as Alexandre Age's high tension.
I still like it a lot because I find, in a weird way, I find it quite sweet somehow. I think that there's a sort of like a sweetness about the sort of the warmth towards like the various kind of like outsider figures in it. And I mean, it's often compared with a movie like Freaks, for instance. So I think, to me, those are the things that I really appreciate, like the scenes with the children with Down syndrome. I mean, that's kind of, I mean, it's kind of like an outrageous sequence. I think for any other director, you would like really be alarmed by that, like the sequence when, the doctor takes them to the cinema and then they end up taking cocaine and then go and see the prostitute. But I think in the context of Hodorovsky, this is almost like a normal moment, really. But it's
he loves working with he loves filling his films with disabled people and animals, doesn't he? Which is really interesting. That is he treating them both the same way? Is he saying disabled people are? I mean, I don't think he is. I think his disabled characters are very sympathetic.
Yes.
And he doesn't blow them up like the Toads and Chameleons, obviously. But I think, I mean, not just the things at the start that I mentioned feel like a poor imitation of Holy Mountain, but you've got that scene where the guy in the suit accosts Alma and peels off his fake ear. But it turns out it's a guy with one ear, and kind of attacks her with it. That's just so similar to the priest in the Holy Mountain who pulls out his eye and gives it to the child prostitute. It feels like he's trying to go over old ground. It doesn't look as good, and that's why I wish it was just more of a straight narrative. If that's what if he wanted to make a horror film, do it normally, I guess. Much as I love the surrealism and all that, I just don't think there's room in this film for both.
It's a weird comparison point between the two because Holy Mountain's about spiritualism and achieving attainment and a higher level of being. And there's a sequence in Santa Sangre which, I don't know if it's acknowledgement of that, but when it's establishing this cult, it introduces a priest who shoots it all down as blasphemy and calling it a cult. So maybe there's a level of self-awareness there. I'm not sure what he was going for in that, but it certainly felt like it to me.
It's so weird, that whole business with the cult, because obviously it's meant to kind of just be mirrored with the fact that Concha loses her arms.
Yeah. But
I don't really get why it's necessary to have that mirroring. You could lose that whole bit about the cult.
It feels a bit confused too, doesn't it? Because like the bulldozers are coming in, and it feels like you're meant to be kind of like a bit on her side against the sort of like the established church, and that it's this sort of pagan, expression. And it's a bit in itself, I guess there's a sort of like an analogy with the circus life, isn't it? Because it's like this, obviously, I guess it's like red paint in the pool. And so it's also about like illusions, but it's also something that seems kind of, there's an authenticity to it when you have the singers and the people playing the guitars. And yeah, I mean, the way she develops as a character is she is like a really unpleasant, horrifying character. And yet at that point, it seems like you're meant to kind of take her side, really. So yeah, I'm not quite sure what the message is or what the idea is there, really.
Yeah, I mean, I do like these individual scenes.
It's a great scene.
I don't feel that it really... I don't feel that certain bits of it really add to... And this film is over 2 hours long, and it doesn't need to be. I really don't think it does.
Here's a weird question then. Sort of in line with Halloween 3 is probably a better movie than it gets credited for, but because it's Halloween, people expect a certain thing. If this wasn't a Hodorovsky film, would you feel better about it? Both of you?
Maybe.
I don't know if that's the case, but like I say, it does feel more like Almodovar, the way the sort of campy horror element.
It's interesting because the producer was Claudio Argento, and I think the writer or the co-writer was, I think, Roberto Leone. He's an Italian screenwriter, and it's not entirely clear who wrote what because there's conflicting accounts of how much input Argento had and how much it was like solely Hodorovsky's project. But I mean, there are kind of elements of giallo in it as well, I guess. And so I guess that makes it, I guess, also like a bit of a mishmash, doesn't it, really? And I think they had like Italian money in it. And so maybe there was, you know, it was pulling in different directions there, really. Because, I mean, there are some elements that are quite giallo-esque, aren't there? Like the way a couple of the murders are staged and I guess that whole sort of psychosexual, you know, that sort of traumatic backstory element. I mean, that's quite sort of Argento-esque, isn't it, really? So I think maybe that's another reason why it feels a bit different. It feels a bit like, like it's trying to be two different things.
That's really interesting. I hadn't even clocked that it was co-written by Roberto Leone. He's not a name I particularly know. He's I think My Dear Killer, which stars George Hilton, is probably his only significant film in the Italian horror genre. But yeah, that's very interesting that it does have the feel, now you mention it, of an Italian horror script that was picked up by Hodorovsky and sort of bent around to fit some of his own obsessions in, and not necessarily in a successful way. I do like the film. I do like it. I just, watching it after the Holy Mountain, it's such a come down.
That's true.
It's not a good comparison, really, is it? To watch these two in short succession.
I mean, I remember at the time, because I was quite young, but I do remember this would be like, I guess, maybe 1990 when it came out in the UK, when I would have been about 12. So even at that age, I do remember that it was quite a prominent release in the UK, which is interesting, you know, for a film like that. But I guess maybe at that time, I think Holy Mountain and El Topo, they were still quite difficult to see. And so I guess without that context of those earlier films, or maybe just, you know, I guess those were not films that were fresh in people's minds anymore. And so I guess in that context, it would have looked much more impressive. But I guess now, you know, we have access to his other work as well. And I think, in comparison, to me, it's just not as powerful. It's not as unique, really, as something like Holy Mountain, or even Vando and Lis, which I think is also like a really interesting film. I've never cared as much for El Topo, I must admit. I always find, to me, that also pales alongside Holy Mountain, because it just looks like it's just less rich, really. It just doesn't have that kind of like intensity and that kind of variety of imagery that Holy Mountain does. So for me, Holy Mountain stands above everything, I think.
I've just remembered, actually, my first encounter with Hodorovsky would have been Santa Sangre, because we rented it, me and my mates rented it on one of our legendary all-nighters, where we'd watch like 8 horror films in a row right through the night. Wow. I can't remember how Santa Sangre went down. We were definitely confused. And the bit with the Down syndrome people was like the only thing we were talking about for the rest of the night, I think. We were like, what was that? And the elephant's trunk, all blood coming out of it.
Like ejaculating.
You just haven't seen, you haven't really seen stuff like that when you're 16 in the 90s, I guess. The early 90s.
I mean, in credit to it, though, as far as a thing in the horror language, the cinematic language, is still nothing else really like it. It's quite similar to Italian horror, but at the same time, it's still very unique in its landscape.
It's very Mexican as well. I think, but he made, I guess, most of his films in Mexico. But to me, that is the most like really Mexican, because Holy Mountain is hard to really place anywhere. But to me, this is much more rooted in like Mexican culture. I mean, at least of what I know of it. I mean, you've got like the Santo figure there, haven't you? And you've got like the Day of the Dead there. And so I guess that, you know, maybe makes it a little bit different from the other films. It feels more rooted in an actual place, I guess.
Even throwing in of luchadors as well. That's a bizarre thing, and I thought I'd see in a
I feel a bit cheated out of a proper Italian version of this now. Why didn't Claudio give it to Dario to do? You know,
what was this? 89.
89. What did Dario make in 89?
He's still on decent form.
It was after Opera. So it would have been The Card Player. Was that after that? Two Evil. Trauma. I guess he had plenty of time between Opera and Trauma to have made this.
Yeah. Would have been a very interesting take, that, yeah.
I don't know why I'm calling it trauma when it's an American film. It's called Trauma. It's not called Trauma. Stop being pretentious, Cliff.
So, any closing thoughts on Santa Sangre before we finish up with?
I like the bit where there's in the funeral parade, you see the clown and he's crying tears through the same pipe thing that the blood comes out of in Holy Mountain. I think that's a nice touch.
Okay. Jonathan?
I don't think I have any more on Santa Sangre. Like I say, I think it's it's maybe a good introduction to his work, I think, but it's not the sort of the full Hodorovsky experience, I think.
Okay, so the vague question by design. As well, no, let's just keep it open. What do you think of Hodorovsky as a filmmaker? And let's not tie it to one film too much. His filmography.
He's fascinating. I all down. I'm good. What am I trying to say? I'm down for surrealism, and I think when he's at his best, he's amazing. He's really watchable, and I really ought to seek out the films of his that I haven't got around to watching yet, and also rewatch El Topo, which I haven't seen since that day in 1997.
Okay.
Yeah, I mean, I guess he. It's hard to kind of pinpoint like a specific like visual style, because I mean, I guess he does a lot of different things, and I guess really everything serves the imagery. It's all about imagery, and I just think he has a kind of a gift for just alarming and amazing imagery, which is really kind of unique. I mean, he's often compared with like Fellini or Buñuel, but I mean, to me, he has a very distinctive sensibility, I think, related to, I guess, like violence, use of animals, sort of like sexual imagery. I think the use of color is really striking. And I think when he had the freedom and he had the money to kind of do that on a kind of lavish scale, like, I think he was a really amazing figure. And it's just really sad that he didn't get to make the film of Dune. I think that would have just been, maybe it would have been overkill, but I don't know. I would like to have seen it, whatever it would have turned out as. I mean, I think just the prospect of a film starring Salvador Dali and Orson Welles and Mick Jagger and Udo Kier, directed by Hodorovsky with design by H.R. Giger. I think it's just a tragedy that wasn't made, really.
Agreed, yeah. It'd be much more interesting. I mean, this is a controversial opinion, but it'd be much more interesting than the current iteration by Denis Villeneuve.
Definitely.
It must be better than David Lynch's dreadful version. And I say that as a Lynch fan.
Hodorovsky said he was happy when he saw the Lynch film, because he said, like, David Lynch is the only person who could have actually done it justice. And then when he saw it and he realised that it wasn't very good, he was actually happy, because even David Lynch failed. So,
yeah.
I mean, for me, if you like him or you don't, the one thing you can't deny about Hodorovsky is he's a force of nature, really.
He's a fascinating, just as a person, I think he's a fascinating, like in himself, he is a kind of like a work of art, really. I mean, it's like if you see his interviews, I mean, I think even if you didn't like his films, you would find him entertaining. And he's kind of like quite a seductive figure as well. When you watch there's an interview that he did, I think it was the ICA. There's an extra on the Santa Sangre Blu-ray, and it just shows him kind of, he's like working the audience. He's just such a natural storyteller, even with this slightly broken English that he has. And yeah, he is quite a kind of an amazing figure, I think. Also,
the fact that he puts himself in, well, certainly in his early films, that he and his later ones, because he plays himself in his biographical ones as well.
And then he uses his sons, I guess, as well, which is like a surrogate, I guess.
Yeah, but he turns up. But then he turns up as his present day self. I'm always fascinated by directors who film themselves as well, who cast themselves in the starring role, because I mean, right up to things like, Alice Lowe in Revenge, if the film's been made really well, you're like, how are you so good behind the camera and in front of it? Now, I'm not saying Hodorovsky is an amazing actor in front of the camera, but you get more of his personality, the fact that you get both get him on both sides of it.
I mean, I think he said he took the lead role in El Topo because nobody else would do the things that he has to do. Like he has to shave his head and he has to kind of,
show his anus.
And I'm not sure about Holy Mountain. I mean, to me, that is the right role for him as the alchemist. I mean, I don't think he's a guy without self-esteem. I think, he chooses the sort of plum role, I think. So, yeah, the alchemist is the ideal role for him, I think, in Holy Mountain.
Especially... Yeah, because the alchemist is the director of the thief's story, isn't he? So obvious. Who else could play that character, really? The film wouldn't make any sense if it wasn't the director playing that character. The film wouldn't make any sense if it... Sure, it will make loads of sense. Yeah.
Be fascinating on that front, though, because the internet does like deciphering movies, and I think this maybe it jumped too far trying to decipher this one.
They've jumped too far in trying to decipher Holy Mountain.
Oh yeah, because there's all those there's groups of people who try to understand what Mulholland Drive really means, but no, this is a whole level above that sort of film theorizing. I don't know.
I'm sure it means something to him, and if you listen to the commentary and it's all about tarot, then he seems to understand it. I don't care what it means because I just love it. As a experience, as an audio-visual experience. Well, visual mainly, to be honest.
Yeah, there's not enough of that, really. Everything has to be understood and explained. Just enjoying it for the ride it is. And that's kind of him down to a T as a director, really. He's not a storyteller. He's a sort of a myth weaver, really. That's a very pretentious way of putting it, but it's kind of accurate at the same time.
He's a visual artist.
It's interesting because the actual, I guess the sort of the message or the meaning is all about like spiritual transcendence and stripping away the layers of illusion. And yeah, I mean, actually as an experience, it's a very kind of physical and it's very like tactile. I think the imagery is tactile. It kind of like when you look at when the thief eats the Christ's face, I mean, and it's Kate. I mean, you actually want to, this is weird to say it, but you actually want to taste that. You want to kind of feel what that tastes like. And it's very kind of, it's like a sensory experience, really, even though it's like the actual message is all about spirituality. It's kind of an interesting contradiction somehow, I think.
Yeah. I think that's a nice place to end, really, unless there's anything left unsaid, any stone left unturned.
I mean,
I just want to say the Holy Mountain again.
It's interesting that Holy Mountain has now become, I think, his like signature film, because I mean, for a long time it was El Topo, wasn't it? That was like the big sort of midnight movie. And then it's interesting how I guess now that like Holy Mountain is more available, that seems to be the kind of jewel, I think, in the crown, really. And even people like Kanye West are fans of it now, for better or worse. So it's
really wow.
There's a picture of them together. I don't know if you've seen that one of they met up apparently. So
that's crazy.
Didn't he cancel Coachella the first time he was booked because to headline because he couldn't take his mountain on? They couldn't accommodate his mountain on stage.
Oh yeah, I think there was like a set, wasn't there? I think that he. So yeah, it's widely influenced.
Okay, so honestly, that went a lot better than I thought it was. I was terrified of this episode because how do you talk about surrealism? It is complex. It's a complex subject. So yeah, Alejandro Jodorowsky there, done and dusted. Jonathan, where can we find your work and yourself online?
So I just finished commentary on The Red and the White by Miklos Janšo, and that's being released, I think, next week, actually, by Kino Lorber in a box set of Janšo films. And Janšo, I guess, is not a million miles away from Hodorovsky, actually. So I think if you've enjoyed Holy Mountain, you might want to try something like Red Psalm or Electra or some of the kind of classic early 70s Janšo movies. And I've also contributed to Second Run's release of a Czech movie called Coach to Vienna, which has just been released. And that's a really wonderful film set during the Second World War. And so I do a lot of work for Second Run. So please check out their new releases. And it's likely I may have something on one of those. And that's Party and the Guest was another one I contributed to recently, another recent Second Run Czech release, which is another great film from the 60s. I guess makes a little bit more sense maybe than Holy Mountain.
Yes, but it's still a complicated movie at the very least. And Cliff, where can we find you in your work?
Devil Times 5 horror podcast, monthly. It's a comedy podcast about horror movies, different theme every month. And we would love to do audio commentaries if anyone wants to book us for one of those. It would be amazing. It would be great.
And I have been your host, Rob Simpson, and this has been Directors Uncut.